He paid a hitman exactly $1. Not 1 million, not a briefcase of cash. $1. The same price as a pack of gum. And the strangest part, the hitman took the deal. This is the story of how a billion-dollar founder tried to buy a murder for less than a coffee, and how that single dollar became the one piece of evidence that took his entire empire down.
Marcus Reyes built his company from a garage to a 9-figure valuation in 6 years. To the outside world, he was the face of the American startup dream. Magazine covers, keynote speeches, the whole script. But behind the scenes, Marcus had a problem. His co-founder, Daniel Cho, owned 40% of the company, and Daniel wanted out. Not quietly. Daniel had spent the last 3 months quietly gathering financial records. Records that showed Marcus had been moving client funds through a shell company in the Caymans, funneling millions meant for investors into his own accounts.
Daniel wasn't just planning to sell his shares. He was planning to go to the SEC. Marcus had 30 days before the filing would go public. 30 days before prison replaced the penthouse.
He needed Daniel gone, not fired, gone.
Here's where most people expect briefcases of cash and shadowy meetings in parking garages. That's not what happened. Marcus didn't have millions in liquid cash. Everything was tied up, hidden, or already flagged by auditors. So he did something almost insultingly clever. He structured the payment as a contract, a legal, on-paper consulting agreement between his shell company and a man named Victor Ames, a security consultant with a very specific set of skills. The contract read like any other vendor agreement: services rendered, risk elimination consulting, payment $1. Why $1? Because under contract law, a deal needs what's called consideration, something of value exchanged. $1 is the oldest trick in corporate law for making a contract technically enforceable while keeping the real payment invisible. The real payment wasn't the dollar, it was what came after. Forgiveness of a $2.3 million loan Marcus had quietly extended to Victor's failing security firm 2 years earlier. On paper, canceling a debt doesn't look like paying for a murder. It looks like a write-off, an accounting footnote. Marcus thought he'd built the perfect invisible transaction. 3 weeks later, Daniel Cho's car went off a coastal road at 11 p.m. No witnesses, no skid marks. The official report: driver fatigue, wet road, tragic accident. Marcus attended the funeral. He gave a eulogy. He cried, or performed crying well enough that no one in that room doubted him. For 6 months, it worked. The SEC filing never happened. Daniel's shares reverted to the company under a buyback clause Marcus himself had drafted years earlier. The same clause, ironically, that Daniel had once called just boilerplate. It'll never matter. Marcus was free, richer even. The company's valuation climbed another 20% within the year. Here's the thing about clever paper trails: they still exist, and paper trails don't die with the people who create them. An insurance investigator reviewing Victor Ames's company for an unrelated bankruptcy filing found the debt forgiveness. Alone, it meant nothing. Companies forgive debts constantly, but when a junior forensic accountant cross-referenced the date of that forgiveness against the timeline of Daniel Cho's death, something didn't sit right. 12 days. That's how close the debt cancellation was to the accident. 12 days was close enough to reopen a file that had been closed for 2 years. Investigators pulled Victor Ames's financial history and found the $1 contract sitting in his company's records, filed away like any other client agreement. On its own, a $1 consulting fee is nothing, but paired with a $2.3 million debt erased 12 days before a murder, it was a motive with a receipt attached. Victor Ames folded first. Fear does that. He gave prosecutors everything: texts, meeting notes, the arrangement in full. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he became the star witness against the man who'd once called him a friend. Marcus Reyes was arrested 18 months after Daniel Cho's death. The charges: securities fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and, almost poetically, first-degree murder. At trial, Prosecutors didn't lead with the fraud or even the murder. They led with the contract. They blew up a single line item on a courtroom screen. Payment, $1. A jury of 12 people stared at that number for the length of an entire trial. The defense argued it was just standard legal language, meaningless boilerplate, but the prosecution's closing argument asked one simple question. If it was truly meaningless, why did he go through the trouble of writing it down at all? Marcus Reyes was convicted on all counts. He's currently serving a life sentence without parole. Victor Ames received 12 years in exchange for his testimony. The company Marcus built still exists today under new ownership, its origin story quietly scrubbed from the About page. The $1 wasn't the price of a life. It was the price of a paper trail Marcus thought would protect him, and instead became the exact thing that convicted him. In white-collar crime, the smallest number on the page is often the one nobody thinks to hide, and that's usually the number that ends up in court. If you want to see how another CEO tried to launder 8 figures through a coffee company, hit subscribe, because that story is coming next.